questions we wrestle with as Christians about who God is, how do we live out our faith, what is the Bible, what is the truth of the Bible, what are we supposed to believe, how are we supposed to live. There are really big, deep questions that we ask each other, that we ask God, that we wrestle with ourselves. And that's why the Cultivate podcast exists, to help us go deeper in our understanding of who God is, His Word, and the way that He's called us to live. Hey everyone, welcome to the Cultivate podcast at the Grove Church. I'm Charlie Lofton, lead pastor there, and here with Bagel Boone. I could actually see in your eyes you were coming with Bagel Boone. What do you think the people would do if we started releasing our pop culture discussions that we do in between recordings?
I think that people would be surprised at the breadth of things that we listen to or we take in. That we like the old classics, musicals, superhero movies, and just iconic movies. So I think they'd be a little surprised of all the stuff that we cover. I learned something recently. This is life-changing is too strong. Okay. But still. So I've talked to you about the fact that I am a fan of not necessarily the movie The Greatest Showman. It was an okay movie, but the soundtrack is baller. Yeah. I listen to that soundtrack a lot. Love it. Also, two of my favorite artists of all time, Pink and Kelly Clarkson. Those are two of your favorite artists?
Yes. In 2018, really? The year after The Greatest Showman came out, they released an album they called it The Greatest Showman Reimagined, and they had popular artists from the time do all of those songs. And two of my favorite songs from that soundtrack, one is made by Pink and one is made by Kelly Clarkson. And this has existed for 8 years, Abigail.
No.
And I just discovered it last month.
What songs do they do?
Never Enough by Kelly Clarkson.
Oh, I bet she just absolutely shreds it.
And the A Million Dreams is Pink.
Really? That's one of your favorites? Well, From Now On is my favorite. Yeah.
A Zac Brown Band.
Oh, I bet it's not as good.
No, it's.
But this is gonna be.
If you have any, if the way that they do it, their rendition of it, it's like this very.
Is it folksy though?
Yeah, and it makes sense. I'm telling you, they did a really great job with the pairings.
I want a choir that spans from highest sopranos to lowest of bass at the end crescendo, and I can hear the whole spectrum of voices.
Greatest Show, Panic at the Disco.
Oh, I can hear that.
It's very interesting.
Poppy.
It's very interesting.
Actually, I think I did know that because my nieces and nephews, it's really funny. They know how to use Alexa. And so they'll be like, Alexa, play blah, blah, blah. And I think I've heard the Panic at the Disco one because of that. Now that you say that. Okay,
Alexa, play Panic at the Disco Greatest Showman?
Yeah. Mouthy title. This is my hot take for the episode then. You brought him up. Hugh Jackman's voice is awful.
Really?
Yes. All he knows do you know what vibrato is? He knows how to imitate vibrato, and he can sing loudly.
Yeah, I think that part of the problem is, I mean, he's having to work really, really hard because he's having to sing in an American accent. You can tell he can hold a note. It's not Russell Crowe in Les Mis.
No, but Russell Crowe...
He was a decent singer in Les Mis. Russell Crowe can't sing.
If we were saying Hugh Jackman was not a singer and he sang in Greatest Showman, I'd be like, yeah, that was a decent job. But he's like known as a singer. And I'm like, well, let's just kill that because you're not a good singer, but you're capable of pulling it off in movies.
He is a great enough performer to make up for being just an okay singer.
A pretty bad singer.
No, he's not a bad singer.
All he does is
bad singer. My boy Russell Crowe, who I love.
Yeah, but he's not a proclaimed singer.
Every male in the movie version Mamma Mia.
Yeah, but none of them are claiming to be singers who got the role.
It's better. Like I'm just saying that's the difference between good and bad. That's bad.
But I would give Hugh Jackman a break if he wasn't claiming to be a like Broadway performer.
I don't think anybody's thinking.
He gets cast for movies where he's made to sing. Like he was in that song Blue.
Hugh Jackman.
And I'm like, you are ruining this movie every time you sing.
If I had said he doesn't claim to be Adele Dazeem, would you know what I meant by that?
Yeah, I do.
The John Travolta
Yeah,
thing.
of course
Look
I
it
do.
up. Look it up. John Travolta introducing Idina Menzel.
I like that he loses volume strength as he starts to go. It's like he knows.
The wickedly talented Adele Dazeem. No, people don't know what we're talking about, but I'm telling you, it is absolutely hilarious.
Anyone, Cassie, if you want to write in another email, anyone send in your thoughts on Hugh Jackman. But I think
perfectly fine.
I think
he's perfectly fine.
We need to
and
move
he is
him
winsome,
out of the category.
And he is good looking, and he is a great performer, and that is enough to carry the whole performance to where his singing is fine, as opposed to Pierce Brosnan, and
who's not claiming to be a singer but did good in spite of it.
And that is a bad singer.
No, Hugh Jackman is a bad singer.
You're ranking him on a completely different scale.
Because he's claiming to be a singer.
I've never heard him claim, I am a singer.
Because he performs in all, he goes after those musical roles.
They give him to him because he's Hugh Jackman. Anyways.
Send in your comments.
So there you go. That's what it would be like. That's what happens.
Pop culture.
That's what happens in between episodes every time. All right.
Important discussions.
We just finished last week the parable of the two sons. We're just right after Palm Sunday. Jesus has been interacting with the chief priests. They tried to trap him. He trapped them back by getting them to not be willing to even take a stand on whether or not John the Baptist was from God or not. And then built on that with the parable of the two sons, saying, hey, John the Baptist came with this message of repentance, and the tax collectors and the prostitutes said yes, and so they're in the kingdom. You act like you're a yes person, but when it came right down to it, you have chosen at this point to still not obey. So we left it with this tension of they supposedly have this heart to say yes to God, but instead they're not following through. And then you mentioned where usually it seems like that these kind of ones kind of end kind of like apocalyptically, like, and then you're going to end up burning and gnashing of teeth and all these sorts of things. But really, this one kind of ends more with almost like you have a decision to make. You have a decision to make. They are, again, the way he says it, they are entering the kingdom ahead of you. There's an impliedness to that. Not they entered the kingdom and you didn't. They are entering. They have entered. It's
currently happening
before you, and before you has an implication of like maybe there's still room. There's still room. There's still time. Okay. So
are they still in the same conversation?
Yes,
presumably.
But yeah, because verse 33. Listen to another parable. So I mean, you definitely get the impression that it was like
same combo.
He explained the previous one, and I got another one for you.
Okay.
Listen to this.
So verse 33.
Matthew chapter 21. Listen to another parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard. He put a wall around it, dug a wine press in it, and built a watchtower. Then he rented the vineyard to some farmers and moved to another place. When the harvest time approached, he sent his servants to the tenants to collect his fruit. The tenants seized his servants. They beat one, killed another, and stoned a third. Then he sent other servants to them, more than the first time, and the tenants treated them the same way. Last of all, he sent his son to them. They will respect my son, he said. But when the tenants saw the son, they said to each other, this is the heir. Come, let's kill him and take his inheritance. So they took him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. Okay, let's just stop right there, because now he's about to get into more interaction. We're kind of catching the vibe here, or kind of what's happening.
I mean, these people are super violent.
Right, so
and they're taking over its business. I'm assuming, like,
yeah.
they don't
So this
want
guy
him to
builds,
benefit.
I get basically for us, I get a vineyard. Like I've got this, this farmland, and we're gonna put a vineyard on there. I'm gonna build everything that we need to grow the grapes, to press the grapes, to make the wine, everything. It's all right here. I put this wall around it. It's protected, and now I'm gonna find some people who can run it for me. They get to live here. And I'm probably sure have some sort of profit sharing arrangement of some kind. You rent this from me, and when it's time to make money, I get mine and you get yours. Like when the harvest time comes, he sent servants to the tenants to collect his fruit. So they have some sort of business arrangement. You do all this work, you get to live here, you get to take care of all of this, and they have some sort of business arrangement that when harvest comes, there's
You're going to get a kickback.
I get the agreed upon portion of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just casually, hey, it's that
time.
time. Send his servants. I got the trucks here, loaded up, and instead,
they went crazy.
Yes,
like even for their standards, like that would be kind of crazy behavior.
that would be
okay.
crazy.
Okay.
This is
hyperbolic. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that would be like all right, let's send the FBI over there.
Right.
Something's happening to that house.
Yeah, you do. You would get the impression. I mean, even in first century Roman Empire, Jerusalem. I mean, they would be like you wouldn't be able to
pull that off.
You wouldn't be able to get away with this.
Okay.
You wouldn't be able to get away with this.
Okay.
And so this is not meant to be a story. It's like, I remember when that happened to Steve.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
It was tough.
If I was his son, I would be terrified to go.
Yeah, so then he sends the second wave, still psychotic. And now you get to the third thing. I'll send my son, and then
maybe not.
They will respect my son, he said. Okay, so if we're talking about, as always, the king, the owner, the father, whatever, is always God, right? We at least we have a question mark here. That says something about him, because the landowner is not an idiot,
right? But he assumed they would respect because he's related.
They'll respect my like.
But these people are savages.
We got to come back. Yeah, we definitely have to come back to that.
Okay. I feel like if I sent that many people ahead of him, I would not send my little Maeve. I'm like, well, they'll know she's related to me, so she'll be fine.
And she's sweet, and everybody likes her. But when the tenants saw the son, they said to each other, "This is the heir. Come, let's kill him and take his inheritance." So they took him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. Verse 40. Therefore, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants? He will bring those wretches to a wretched end, they replied, and he will rent the vineyard to other tenants who will give him his share of the crop at harvest time. Jesus said to them, "Have you never read in the scriptures, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone? The Lord has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore I tell you that the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people who will produce its fruit. Anyone who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces. Anyone on whom it falls will be crushed." When the chief priests and the Pharisees heard Jesus' parables, they knew he was talking about them. They looked for a way to arrest him, but they were afraid of the crowd because the people held that he was a prophet.
They held that he was a prophet?
Believed.
Okay.
They held the belief.
Okay. Can we get something covered real quick before we go deep into this?
Yes.
Is a cornerstone as literal as I'm thinking it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's like literally the corner of some structure would be like a notable piece of rock or something.
Right. If you think about, like, I was gonna build a house on some sort of rock slab, the four stones in the corner
or the anchor
would be the ones that you would most want to be the strongest, the flattest, holding the most surface. The strongest ones.
Yeah.
The thing that is keeping the whole thing from collapsing on itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you know that houses aren't attached to the slabs they're built on?
What do you mean?
So one of the clients that I work for is a home builder. And so I go and document some of the processes. And after a while, I was like, none of these frames are like drilled into the platform. When are y'all going to do that? And he's like, oh, we don't attach the house to the slab. I'm like, well, that seems really reckless. The tornado's going to come through and the house is just going to blow away. But they don't like anchor it onto anything. They just like build it on top, and the weight of the house just holds it down.
I don't know that. I guess I didn't know that.
Isn't that crazy?
I would have said that. Yeah, that they.
Nope.
None of them.
Nope. If it's built on a concrete slab. There's ones where they're built, if they're like built into a hill or something like that, they'll have posts that go down into the ground. But if they put down a concrete slab and then build the house on top of it, it's just wood on top of wood. So the weight of the house. Crazy, right?
Google Gemini disagrees.
Oh.
So maybe it is
Well,
not
the builder
maybe
I
it's
work
not maybe it's
for.
not always the case, depending on maybe it's
That just feels so reckless to me.
right.
Like,
if
why
if
would
you would
you
ever
not
do it
secure
once,
it?
that feels reckless to me.
That I'm like,
Yeah.
surely that doesn't jack up the price of your house so
Yeah, I
high
mean,
that
like,
you have to get a couple of bolt plates.
I feel like I've seen it where they have these big anchor bolts that kind of shoot through the thing
Yeah.
into the concrete. So I think that is a
Maybe it's
universal
like commercial
situation.
buildings do that more often.
Yeah, maybe we need to. Maybe we'll not talk about who this builder is.
Your houses might all be blown away in a couple of months.
Yeah, I don't know. So Jesus again makes it very explicit here. I mean, he doesn't come right out and explain it,
the parable.
but his description of it afterwards.
Yeah.
And then obviously they got the message. So Jesus was trying to be very clear here.
Mm-hmm.
He was not looking for that kind of trademark ambiguity that we've talked about sometime.
Right.
Hey, go ahead and ponder about what this means. He who has ears, let him hear. Think about that for a little bit, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, because there's a direct, especially for guys as smart as this,
mm-hmm.
Because Jesus already made these claims about who he is. So God has given the nation of Israel, right, a stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
You are not owners of the earth. You are not owners of Israel. You are not owners of anything. God is the owner, and I have given you a stewardship. And there have been times when you have been unfaithful. And so I send my prophets to tell you to get right. And what have you done with the prophets?
Rejected.
So many of the prophets were martyred,
mm-hmm.
like the Old Testament prophets
were
killed. And so I send you more prophets.
And yet again.
And then you keep doing it. You persecute them. You hate them. You kill many of them. Like this is how you have been.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have known, they would have easily connected this to their own history.
Yeah.
And it's easy in hindsight to look back and say, man,
they embarrassed by that?
They shouldn't have done that but you go to they, right? They should not have done that to the prophet Zechariah. They shouldn't have. They should have been better to Elijah than what they were. They should have. And there's no
But like
there's no we.
But in their history, like at that time, were they like, yeah, we did that, or were they kind of like hush hush?
No, they would have known. It was in the scripture.
Okay.
They would have known that their ancestors had mistreated
people who were sent by God.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're different.
No,
and it's the kind of thing that we all do. We all, if your family has a troubled history, or if Christianity, your particular branch of it, has a troubled history, you look back and say that's a shame.
Mm-hmm.
But we would never, without the real pensiveness, the necessary act of being pensive, of just like, do I have a bit of that? Do I have a bit of that attitude? And so this has been basically saying that this has been your history.
Mm-hmm.
You have mistreated and sometimes killed the prophets, and then God says, I'm going to send my son.
Mm-hmm.
They will accept my son.
But see, I feel like that's how God knew. Like Jesus wasn't unaware that he was going to be rejected.
Right.
That's where I feel like he splinters off from
it was prophesied.
The dad. Yeah, the dad saying that he was going to send his son. I feel like God wasn't like, I'm going to send my son, and they're going to know.
The story is unrealistic enough where it's like, what they've done isn't quite bad enough for judgment. I'm going to send them my son. They'll kill him, and then judgment will be significant enough. That takes the story beyond believability into a completely different thing. This mark of unbelievability makes you stop and pause, which, again, if we go one-to-one and be like, well, that is not really the motivation for which God sent his son, but implied in that is God's, even though you have done me and my prophets so much harm, I still want to believe in you. I still believe in you. Please, please do right now. Please, I'm begging you. And so I think it does point to God's graciousness.
That he's still willing to.
But I don't think that we should take from it that God is as naive as this landowner seems to be.
Yeah.
But I think that detail is put in there on purpose.
Okay.
And so then Jesus says very explicitly, there's actually verses that talk about this, that you are going to reject the one on whom this whole thing is supposed to be built.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, what you think you have is going to be taken from you and given to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Which, whether or not you believe that to be the apostles who were Jewish people or kind of what has happened in the centuries since then, is just a complete switch from Christianity being a Jewish-based faith to
anyone who believes.
Well, yeah, I mean, 99.99% Gentile faith. I mean, it's, the kingdom has been taken away from the Jewish people being the stewards to a completely different group of stewards. Even though some of the initial group of stewards were technically from the nation of Israel, the nation of Israel as a whole is no longer the one that is stewarding.
It was opened up.
God's kingdom. It is now. This is a transition from the kingdom of Israel to the church. It's two completely different things.
Yeah.
This has ended, and now we are here, and that has some interesting theological implications, because one of the big questions that people have of like kind of some big picture theological things, and it becomes more and more relevant the more and more the current nation of Israel is in the news. What is the relationship between Israel and the church? What is God's current relationship with Israel? How does God view the Jewish people as a whole? So they were his chosen people to, again, using this parable, given a stewardship, blessed to be a blessing, right? All the way from Genesis chapter 12. I'm going to give you this thing and you're going to be blessed from it, but you also have, it is a stewardship to which I am owed, and there are certain things that you have to do in order to maintain the stewardship here. Well, you have rejected Jesus, the cornerstone. You've killed my son. Now this is taken away from you, and now the stewardship is given to someone else. What is the relationship between those who had the old stewardship before and us? And does God still hold any favor towards these original stewards? That is a big theological question that has had major
dividing lines.
Yeah, and has had major impact on global events. That is a significant, it is not the only, but it is one of the significant reasons why over the last 80 years, America has been such a strong supporter of Israel, is because of how closely the Christian community has been tied to premillennialism, which holds to the idea that even though the stewardship may be with the Christians now, God still has a covenant relationship with Israel with some uncompleted promises. So there's some promises that God made to Israel that were not ever completely fulfilled, and God is ultimately going to fulfill them, and we should be helpful to God and to his original people so that these prophecies can be fulfilled. Or no, shut down, that's over, redo, and any of the unmet promises are now extended in a different way to the people who hold the stewardship now. That is a big question. So premillennialists say God still has unique favor for the Jewish people. Therefore, we as God's people now with this stewardship should be very favorable towards them. And I could say it feels like, and we talk about our theological house, what you think about the relationship between the church and Israel is pretty small.
It's huge.
Except that It has had long-standing geopolitical consequences for the last 80 years.
Mm-hmm.
In a choice between, are we going to support a Jewish person or a Muslim person?
Mm-hmm.
Geopolitically,
Yeah.
the Christian answer is almost always for the last 80 years been, well, the Jewish people always, because
Yeah.
they still have this favoritism over here. So we're moving out of necessarily what Jesus was trying to communicate to them,
Since it was that.
but more to just kind of the next level implications of that,
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like I feel like I needed to address. But anyways.
Sure. But with this, it's basically just like last episode where I said it feels like getting slapped with both hands. Did your siblings ever do that to you? Like a little delayed.
My brother, he was 6 years older than me, and so his violence towards me was minimal.
Well, it's a tough slap to get out of because your head bangs that way and then you just get hit again and it's like blah, and you just feel all discombobulated. I feel like that's what both of these parables feel like. That like there's a hit and then right after it is just another hit of like, no, actually that's you. You're the one that's rejected all of these multiple people who have been sent. And so it's like a double whammy of like, well, that's a horrible situation. Who would do that? You. And then just laying out the reality of what he's actually talking about. But also, I guess if they're hearing it just like the one that we read last week, that it's like, I know this one has more of the apocalyptic. Did I say it? Did I say it right?
Yeah, sure.
Boom. Language. There still does seem like you can choose now.
Yeah.
To not reject who I'm sending.
Yeah, I feel like there is an ability for them individually to choose something different.
Mm-hmm.
But he is really kind of manifesting here the idea that as a whole, I have been rejected by the initial
and the people before
the initial tenants, and I'm about to be executed, and you're in a lot of trouble, and a new group of tenants are coming. So I think big picture, his declaration about what is about to happen in the transition from what we'll call the age of Israel to the age of the church is set. Implied in that, though, is, but you,
individual.
We'll talk about Steve again. You, Steve, the chief priest, the chief, Joe the Pharisee, you can still get out.
Yeah.
The fact that you collect, the big picture, you collective, y'all have rejected me. But I do think you're right. There is an implied plea for the individual to get on the right side of this.
Yeah.
The fact that Jesus has big picture been rejected that's done. That's clear. But there is still time and hope for individuals to not reject.
Because it is, I mean, that's a pretty, well, I don't know if at that time they would have, but today, that comparison of, oh, someone sent their child to me and I still killed their child. Like, that's pretty like, oh, well, I don't want to be that person. Like, that's a pretty like harsh thing to say that like, well, I even sent my person that I thought you would respect because they're a part of me.
Right.
That's a pretty like, you would hope not written in stone type thing.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
It's like, no, I still have the choice to be like someone who would see who that is and actually turn and confess and repent. Yeah. And not just be clumped into the larger we. Like, it could be a warning just as much as a condemnation of what has happened.
Yeah, but then it immediately goes to, and then they got together and were like, how can we kill this guy?
Yeah.
I mean, just they're
like, no, we're doubling down.
We overuse the word irony because we don't know what it means. Maybe this isn't ironic, but like,
no, it's ironic.
They like, hey, you killed the son, and Jesus says, you've rejected the chief cornerstone, and the chief and the priest heard this. They knew he was talking about them.
They acknowledge that.
He's
Yeah.
talking about, he's saying we're the ones that are going to reject him and persecute him, possibly even kill him.
So let's do that.
We should get on. We should get on to it.
Sounds like a great plan. Yeah, it's all brought on.
He put it.
Yeah, that is a bummer.
But it also makes sense. I mean, that if he's wrong, it is a dangerous thing to be going around saying.
And claiming that people should be. Yeah, it is.
That our leadership and oversight of the faith of our people has been completely rejected by God. We handed to a completely different group of people because we don't believe what this one guy is saying.
But that's like that one that's like, he's either a liar, lunatic, or something else.
The Lord.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a fine line to walk.
Yeah.
So it's fair that they're having these.
Yeah. It's very clear they heard the message.
Yeah.
Message received.
But if what you're saying is true, regardless of what it's true or not, what you're saying is attributing a lot of authority.
Right. And so either you are a liar or a lunatic. Either way, you need to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Worshiping you is not an option for us.
Yeah.
You have to be dealt with. And we've got to figure out a way to arrest you, but we have to do it in a way where we're not going to get blamed for it because these idiots are believing in you, which is in fact a huge part of the problem.
Yeah.
If he were hanging out by himself talking to a tree and only two other crazy people were there with him, like, oh no, whatever. But like you are on the verge of a power shifting cult. You have to be dealt with. But I think your Lord, Liar, Lunatic was really good. So the idea behind that, C.S. Lewis is the person that came up with it, that you can't basically trying to get rid of the idea of dismissing Jesus as just a good person or a really good teacher. You can't, he says you can't do that. You cannot have a moderate position about Jesus because he claims to be the Son of God.
Yeah.
And if you claim to be the Son of God, either that is true and your only option is worship.
Then you need to reorient.
Or it's not true. And if it's not true, he knows it's not true, and he's a liar and should be completely rejected. He doesn't know it's true. That means he's insane.
We need to save him from himself.
Yeah, right? Those are your only legitimate choices. You do not have the choice of, I kind of like him.
Away.
I kind of like him. I kind of like him. The only one that has been added, and the first time I heard this was when I was in college, is I can't remember if there is one that starts with L or not. Misunderstood. He didn't really say that.
Oh, so that's taking a shot at the biographers.
Yes. Now we're just taking a shot at the Bible. It's like, so if I can reject that he said that, and I'm only left with him saying things like hugs are sweet and clouds are pretty, then I can have that sort of moderated position about Jesus, because he didn't say those things that other people said he said, right? And so that is how the modern scholar deals with the Lord, Liar, Lunatic.
Let's not include misunderstood.
Yeah, I mean,
that's silly,
right? Well, I'm just, that's how some people process it. But if in fact we have an accurate recording, this is what Jesus said.
Yeah.
You cannot be wishy-washy about it.
Yeah. Or just assume you didn't hear anything.
Right.
Because there's sometimes
it's a call to action.
Well, there's sometimes that like kids talk nonstop, and so you can ignore probably like 70% of what they say. But then there's sometimes that they say one thing where you're like, okay, well, we can't. Like, that was pretty substantial what you just said.
Right. And that's kind of and they have, and again, and the leaders here have chosen. We hear you.
But because we heard you, we now have to do something.
We hear you, and either we are going to follow the prostitutes and the tax collectors into this new kingdom that you're talking about, and choose to not reject the Son, but follow the Son instead. We could do that. No, we are not doing that. We do in fact reject you. and we do not believe that you are connected to these Old Testament prophecies. We know that you're saying it, and again, so either you are a dangerous liar or an even more dangerous lunatic.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the only real option is to get the piece off the board.
Yeah.
Which then moves as a transition to now we are on what is called Passion Week, where we just had Palm Sunday, and we are it may be Monday by this point, right? We are working our way towards Friday.
Okay.
And we'll get a little bit closer in our next parable, the unfortunately titled The Parable of the 10 Virgins.
Oh, that's the one that I've read.
You've read that one?
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, okay.
Paired with other parables. I've never read it by itself, so I don't know how it is a standalone
I don't know.
story,
I will have to decide if we're just going to say maidens.
No, I think virgins is fine. That's what it is, right?
Okay. Fair enough. All right, so we will continue on this journey through kind of Passion Week with some of these more kingdom-oriented parables next week. Abigail, thank you as always for joining us, and we'll see you next week for the parable of the 10 virgins. Thank you for listening to the Cultivate podcast. Our hope is that you are taking steps to go deeper in your faith, that you are asking big questions and you're looking for answers. We hope that we can be a resource for you through our podcast and any other way that we can help you. You can find all our episodes anywhere that you can find podcasts, including YouTube. And again, thank you so much for joining us.